Pastor Angel, the second proposer from Team Affirmative. Resolved. Dear panel, the opposition side comes in and talks about that we did not give them examples of moral values, and they mention their examples. So we also come in with our examples. We give you integrity, there's justice, and there's honesty. Then he brought in a point where he said that we agree with them unknowingly, since we are acting in a way that is subjective. But dear panel, I want to inform you, the mere fact that they are arguing with us and actually telling us that our side is saying the moral values are objective. Their side is saying the moral values are not objective. At the end of the day, the mere fact that they are arguing is them upholding a moral value of following the truth and not agreeing with what we are saying. Then they came in and talked about this, my fellow proposer asked an POI where they asked, do you believe that the citizens of the country make their decision according to the laws? And then he said yes, which means that he agrees that the parliamentarians who make these laws actually agree and use a rational thinking on this basis to make these laws that these people actually later follow. So he's supporting us. My fellow proposer left in a point where she said I would come and emphasize. I'm going to emphasize very well. The religious values are objective because they remain valid regardless of what people think. The 10 Commandments remain valid. Even if you believe that stealing is good, the 10 Commandments remain valid. And of its best example, the 10 Commandments have been the same and revealed from the Bible since the Bible was written. Even though over the decades people may have had different opinions about them, but they still stand. What are we trying to imply? Now do not be tampered, dear opposition, to talk about defiance. Because people defying and disobeying facts doesn't really change that people defy the moral knowing it's wrong. It doesn't really change the whole moral. And at the end of the day, when you defy these morals knowing it's wrong, you should repent. All right, dear panel. I'm going to emphasize on the thin line, and actually the reason as to why we are taking the law and the moral values to be in one line. The law is influencing, the law is promoting the moral values. At the end of the day, the moral values themselves promote the making of the law. NPOIs? No. So dear panel, we present to you that the fact that the thin line between morals and the law makes them one. We as team proposition actually saying these moral values are more objective than subjective. Why? She clearly presented to you the reason as why we are saying these moral values are objective is because they're not influenced by they're not influenced by personal feelings or what. They are based on a rational thinking. And which rational thinking we've actually noticed that this rational thinking is not influenced by any other feelings. So, what are we trying to imply here? According to the UN Peace Council, it shows that the laws are generally based on the moral principles of society. They both regulate the conduct of an individual in society and they influence each other to a great extent. The laws, to be effective, must represent the moral ideas of the person. So, dear panel, with this, we are just presenting to you the fact that the moral values are actually embroidered in the law. I've really emphasized that. And then to show you that they are more of objective. They are based on a rational thinking. And at the end of the day, if the school, influenced by personal feelings and ideas, proposes to me a law in school that says, do not steal your neighbor's property, the moral value there is respect, right? But at the end of the day, it comes down to the opinion that is not influenced by anyone else. The opinion that comes in the rational thinking and considering a fact, whereby an individual slopes down and is like, am I going to steal? Am I not going to steal? If the individual ends up stealing, dear panel, if the individual actually decides not to steal, it comes to the fact that it is rational thinking. And at the end of the day, whether we are subjected to anything, whether we are subjected to these moral values, it all comes down to the objectivity of an individual. That is a point that should be noted. So, as I'm concluding, what have we presented? One, we have actually presented to you the thin line between the laws and the morals and emphasized this. And with this, I'm more than proud to propose this case and show you that objectivity is actually more than subjectivity in our moral.
A good evening, dear August House. Ladies and gentlemen, the matter of fact that our dear farmers are coming to tell us about moral values from their point of view shows us how subjective this is. It varies from person to person. That is what we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, they keep emphasizing the law. But the issue of the day is about moral values. They are talking about how the law is derived from moral values. That we do agree. But the issue of the day, or the questions of the day, are about morality or moral values. We do not care about what happens in the law or what the law at some point states about this. But what we are talking about is whether moral values are subjective or objective. This is what we are talking about. Even the law that they are talking about that brings about moral values does bring about the subjectivism. Let us quote Article 22, Clause 2 of Uganda's constitution. It says, protection of right of life. No person has the right to terminate the life of an unborn child except, have you heard the exception, members? Except as may be authorized by the law. If the law has exceptions, then what does not? This is what we are talking about. The principle of right and wrong varies according to the situation. Even according to World Population Review, it shows that yardsticks legalize abortion under which circumstances? When it saves a life. Therefore, the respect for life at this point does change. What was formerly deemed as wrong does become right under such circumstances. In case of pregnancy risks, the cause of abortion can become right, that one can now abort under supervised opinions. Ladies and gentlemen, even our next point does tell us about the issue of public decency. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a Maasai man walked into this meeting with his Maasai shirt and maybe a piece of clothing down. Some of you may say that the man is indecent. But when you go to his community, that is the epitome of decency. That is what we are talking about. That in Maasai land, this is right. Granted.
Do you believe that the existence of exceptions in the law is as a result of rational thought?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we are talking about. Rational thought is a decision from the mind of someone. It varies from person to person. The compromise of moral values for the greater good of society is what shows that these issues are indeed subjective. Ladies and gentlemen, under certain circumstances, what was formerly deemed as wrong may become the most right thing. Murder can become the most good thing to do when a person is agonizing. Ladies and gentlemen, that is where euthanasia comes in very handy. A person, your loved one, you choose to extend compassion, mercy and kindness to them by simply opting for them to choose that right to die as referred to by the Cornell Law School. The right to die then becomes the only option to save your loved one. Now, the respect for life is now shown as the respect for death. And it is seen as something right. This is what we are talking about. Moral values. When compromised for the greater good of society, what was formerly deemed as wrong now becomes right. This is what we are talking about. I am Kakai Patience Linda from the Negators.
This is the High School Crossfire. We'll be back in a minute.